Did you know that in the early 1980s, an American on average traveled approximately 16,000 miles per year by car, bus, and airplane combined? That's almost 2/3 of the Earth's circumference. Now let's journey back in time to the 1980s, a transformative decade for passenger transportation in the United States. The 1980s kicked off with the deregulation of the airline industry. This monumental event, orchestrated by the Airline Deregulation Act of 1978, took full effect in the early 80s, leading to a surge in competition among airlines. Fares dropped dramatically, making air travel more accessible to the average American. Then, in 1981, the Reagan administration introduced significant cuts in federal funding for public transportation. This forced many cities and towns to reduce the scale and frequency of their bus and rail services, pushing more people to rely on private transportation. Meanwhile, the auto industry was experiencing a revolution of its own. Spurred by the oil crisis of the 1970s, the 1980s saw a significant shift towards fuel-efficient cars. Foreign manufacturers, especially those from Japan, capitalized on this trend, and by the mid-80s, they held a substantial share of the American market. In 1983, the first minivan rolled off the assembly line, heralding a new era in family transportation. The minivan's combination of car-like handling with ample passenger and cargo space made it an instant hit, forever changing the landscape of American roads. The decade also witnessed the rise of the motorcycle as a popular mode of transportation. The Harley-Davidson Motor Company, which was on the brink of bankruptcy in the early 80s, made a miraculous comeback, and by the end of the decade, their sales had quadrupled. Finally, the decade came to a close with the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990. This landmark legislation mandated that all public transportation be accessible to people with disabilities, a significant stride towards inclusivity in passenger transportation. In summary, the 1980s was a pivotal decade for passenger transportation in the United States. It witnessed the democratization of air travel, the rise of foreign cars and the minivan, the resurgence of the motorcycle, and the advent of inclusivity in public transportation. Each of these developments has left a lasting imprint on how Americans travel, shaping the transportation landscape we see today.